Hello everyone and welcome to the video. Today I want to talk about the 20th anniversary patch for World of Warcraft, or patch 11.0.5 for those who want the actual number. The changes it brought, the celebration is on for the 20th anniversary celebration. It has been a long, strange trip for many players, I'm sure, myself included, that have spent 20 years off and on, not every day, but off and on playing this game and building characters, connections with other players around the world, memories, good and bad, collecting loot, mounts, transmogs, all the stuff that you were able to do in this imaginary yet wonderful world of Azeroth. So this celebration is to culminate all of that time spent and all of those memories made. However, with memories being made this week, we have class balancing issues. We have a big size Brontosaurus elephant in the room that we have to address because everyone else has at this point. Why shouldn't I? Along with just talking about, the overall feel of the game and the content we have now, and then potentially looking forward to what content may be coming on the horizon, and looking forward to some class tuning on Tuesday to kind of fix what happened over the week with class balancing issues. So we're going to dive into some blue posts and take a look at what they're going to address upcoming on the reset. So the first thing I want to jump into in this video is going to be the class tuning incoming on October 29th. We're looking at some big changes across the board for several classes, both good and bad. A lot of the focus being put on elemental shamans, trying to fix that ridiculous buff they got in the middle of the week that made their damage insane. We're looking at getting a quality of life buff for all three warlock specs, which should help warlock players out tremendously. Looking at some nerfs coming in for hunters, and just some rebalancing for other classes. But I'm sure once this actually goes live, we'll get a more in-depth feel on how it impacts things like Holy Paladins, the Blood Death Knight, Balanced Druids, folks that are going to get some pretty interesting tweaks to their current classes, because there are some of these classes that desperately need that breath of air, and some of them that got maybe a little too much and are going to be brought back down, and we'll see how that affects them. But the big ones being affected right now, Blood Death Knights are going to be getting a damage increase in all their major damaging abilities, so Blood Boil, Heart Strike, and Death Strike, along with their Blood Plague, are getting buffed, and they are going to give them a little more proc chance and damage coming out of the Gift of Sand Lane window after they changed it in 11.0.5. They want to make sure you can get more benefit out of it since the uptime has been reduced. Balanced Druids are getting a big change across the board as well. You're looking at some damage buffs to their Starfall, Star Surge, Starfire, Wrath, Shooting Stars, and Crushing Stars damage. So damage coming in there, and I know Balanced Druid players that I'm friends with have not been happy with where the spec is. So this might bring them out of hiding, and we'll get to see how the damage looks for them in Raid and Mythic Plus. Restoration is also getting some changes here. Now, I am not someone who plays all of these, so I want to preface that. I'm not going to be able to give insight and effective understanding of how this is going to affect them right now, but just be aware that there are going to be some changes coming to the druid, that if you've been putting your druid on the back burner because it has not been the funnest to play, that if it's balance or if it's restoration, even if it's feral, you may want to take it out and see what it looks like. If the damage is up there, you might have something to play around with in this new patch that we've got going on. The big change for Beast Mastery and Marksman Hunters is the Dark Ranger. The Dark Ranger is being tweaked because the stacks had kind of gotten a little too high, that your AoE was getting out there to the point where you're using it in single target situations, and then Dark Ranger overperforming a single target for Marksman. They're trying to reduce it while compensating with AoE buffs. So you're looking at things like barb shot damage getting nerfed, a stomp and multi shot getting increased. So they're trying to redistribute where your damage is going to come from, so that way you're getting effective usage out of AoE mechanics and AoE and single target and single target. I don't know how it's going to affect Beast Mastery. It seems like it's going to be a nerf, and it's not going to be a fun nerf at that, but we will see when it goes live. Marksmanship, probably the same thing. You're getting a Black Arrow damage reduce, but you're also getting a Bleak Powder and a Shadow Surge damage increase. So they're trying to give you some incentive to try other things. Symphonic Arsenal is also getting one as well. They're trying to change that because of the removal of Eagle Talon's True Focus. They want to make sure that that damage from there gets kind of given back because they felt like it took too much off. For monks, you're getting a Mistweaver buff, and that's fine because I'm a Mistweaver monk and I do enjoy being able to get in there and mix it up with Fist Weaving. And in Mythic Plus right now, we do seem to be able to ride with the flow of damage, but if we ever fall behind, it's kind of we got to stop actually playing what we want to play and go back to being a more traditional healer, and that can kind of hurt. Uh, but you're getting a healing increase for 6%, You're getting a little more healing out of your spinning crane kick. Jadefire Teachings gives you Ancient Teachings by an additional 160, so a 20% increase from 140. Some changes to Rushing Wind Kicks damage. Yulon's Whisper healing increased by 400%. But a slight buff to Jade Bond, increasing your Mastery healing of 60%. Now it's 20. So, looking forward to trying that out. Holy Paladins are going to be getting a mana cost adjustment to Beacon of Virtue and Holy Shock, 5% instead of 4 now for Beacon, and 2.8 for Holy Shock instead of 2.6. So a 1% and a 0.2% increase, but these things are meant to combat their over reliance, Blizzard seems to think, of Beacon of Virtue and raid encounters. So they want your mana decisions to be more impactful. Disciplined Priests are getting a buff to their non atonement style of healing, should you ever come into a situation where there is no enemy target to atone heal for. So you're going to be getting a buff to Power Radiance, Flash Heal, and Premonition. Gives you something to rely on should you have like a dot outside of combat. You still got to top the group up for like a Mythic Plus. Also, Shadow is getting a Psychic Link damage change. It's getting 30% of damage dealt to targets afflicted with Vampiric Touch instead of 25. Assassination Rogues are getting a 5% crit chance granted during Master Assassin nerf. It's going to 20 instead of 25 now. Shamans, enhancements specifically. This is the changes that they're going to do to kind of combat where your damage kind of flew off the rails there a little bit during this week. They are buffing Farseer. They do want Farseer to be a little funner, and personally, I like calling on the ancestors, or I call them my grandparents, but I like calling on them because it's a fun mechanic. Stormbringer, Arc Discharge is only going to have one instant cast, Chain Lightning or Lightning Bolt instead of two, and then Voltaic Surge increases Earthquake and Chain Lightning damage by 5% instead of 15. So they brought that back down so that way the explosive burst and AoE is kind of kept in check. Echo Chamber now increases your damage to the elemental overloads by 20%, so that is a 20% nerf. Was 40, now it's 20. Ascendance getting a 50% nerf with your elemental overloads, so it was 150 to 100, and now Preeminence now increases haste by 20% instead of 25 while Ascendance is active. You are getting a buff to Ice Fury, buffing your Frost Shock damage by 50% up to 200% from 150. Enhancement is getting a just straight damage nerf. It will not apply to PvP combat, but you are seeing a damage nerf to your Lightning Bolt, your Chain Lightning, and Stormbringer Tempest damage. Restoration, however, is getting a damage buff for PvE from Farseers, so you'll be able to contribute more Mythic Plus damage or even more raid damage if you like during the abilities to not have to heal as heavily and have Farseers out to just deal extra damage. So that'll help you truck through some Mythic keys if you're a pretty comfortable group with the Resto Shaman where they can just kind of pop off a little bit. Warlocks are the most exciting change on the page for me. You're getting buffs to Affliction, Demonology, and Destruction. Have them up here. They're pretty straightforward. There's no sort of whimsicalness to it except for the demonic core change. And if you're a Demonology Warlock, you know that's pretty big. Grimoire Felguard also getting a a buff of 65% is also pretty nice. Destruction, just getting straight love across the board. 25% buff to Hellfire Wither, 10% to Chaos Bolt, 25% to Immolate, 20% to Incinerate, Conflagrate by 25, Rain of Fire by 20. These are just good numbers all the way around for Destruction, so you're going to see a lot more Destruction Warlocks out there in the world. I'm all for it. Warriors are getting a 10% execute damage buff across the board, and then Arms is getting some love, and Fury is getting some love to help pull them back up from the nerfs that Fury especially got over the last couple of weeks, and let you get back in there and rend and tear until it's done. Also, Protection getting a single target damage increase from Colossus Demolish. PvP buffs and nerfs, you're looking at Balanced Druids getting a tweak to their healing. Feral Druids are getting pulled back a little bit because right now they've been really good in arenas, it seems like, from what I've seen and heard. They've been able to go in there and tear it up. This is to help pull them back in a little bit, bring them back down to par, so to speak. Hunters are getting a nerf, and it's the same nerf for both Marksman and Beastmaster. It goes around Dark Ranger. Bleak Powder damage and Withering Fire's damage, Black Arrows are being brought back down. For Monks, Mistweaver Jade Empowerment now causes your Crackling Jade Lightning to hit 2 less targets, which if you're playing Korak's Revenge, that's just less people you're bouncing Chain Lightning or your Crackling Jade Lightning off of for healing when you're in the pit, the mosh pit, getting in there and healing. Holy Paladins are getting the biggest adjustment, and it's mostly a nerf to bring their numbers down. But Herald of the Sun is getting a nerf for both of its Blessing of Banshee and Eternal Flames. Your Lightsmith is getting a big nerf. Word of Glory is getting decreased. Your mana generation decreased. Uh, that's pretty much where the nerfs stop. Now you're looking at, well, I'm sorry, Blessing of Summer also getting a 6% nerf. But your damage is coming up. So your Hand of the Wrath damage is coming up. Your Judgment damage is coming up. Your Crusader Strike damage is coming up. Avenger Crusader now transfers 200% of damage into healing, and it was 260. So you are getting some damage, but you are losing the effectiveness to turn that damage into healing. Discipline Priest, Holy Priest, and Shadow Priest are getting some touches as well. You see that right here on the screen. You're looking at Void Heart increasing Atonement healing by 30%, so a 10% increase buff there. Premonition of Solace is reducing 5% less damage and having its absorption decreased by 15%. Uh, Renew healing and Prayer of Mending healing for Holy and PvP, so there you go. You got a little more oomph in some of your more popular spells. For Shadow Priest, your Void Leech is getting a nerf. I'm sorry, a nerf to its seconds that it heals, but an increase to the total of max health that it heals by. Void Leech healing reduced by 2%, and collapsing void damage reduced by 10. So you are getting a nerf overall. Uh, Not sure how a lot of this affects the PvP side of these specs. Very rarely PvP, but I did want to go over the changes down here so that way you can at least see them if you're not aware of them. You can always get the post from the Blizzard forums, or you can go to Wowhead and get the blue post. They always post them when they become live for everyone to look at. Lastly, on the list, you have elemental enhancement and resto changes. You're looking at healing increasing for resto. You're looking at damage nerfs for Totemic Whirling Earth for enhancement. And you're looking at Ascendance getting a nerf as well, and Lightning Bolt damage being increased instead. So, some balancing acts right there for the Shaman. The resto one, having the healing brought back up a little bit, should make them more desirable in group PvP content. Arms and Fury. Slayer Culling Cyclone increases blade stored damage, so you're getting a 10% increase on Culling Cyclone. Slam damage is increased for arms by 40%, and Colossus Smash damage is increased by 60%. So arms is going to be able to get in there, and they're probably going to be able to put down some pretty solid damage in Arena. That'd be nice to see. Fury's been pretty good so far. They're just getting that buff to their Culling Blade Storm. So those are the blue posts. Hopefully these changes impact you positively, and if you're one of the class players that are getting affected negatively, get in there and give it an earnest chance before you go, this is terrible, I hate this game. Don't let the numbers completely ruin your day, but I would be realistic in thinking that you're going to see a step down if you're playing a hunter or a shaman. Along with the 20th anniversary celebration going on in game right now, we're also looking at celebrating Hallow's End this week. That launched on Friday. And for the next 2 weeks, you will be able to queue daily into the Headless Horseman fight and try and farm up the Headless Horseman mount, which, if you're like myself, you haven't been able to claim that in 17 years. So good luck fighting the good fight, and I wish you the best because God knows I've run 5 characters a day since this thing launched on Friday. Not even close. However, they have added a way to try and boost your chances by just a little bit. If you go into the queue and load into Scarlet Monastery, if you don't know about this, when you load in, you're going to see on the left-hand side of the walkway as you head down toward the pumpkin, these 5 Wickermen. Speak to the one in the middle, he'll give you 4 curses. If you live through the fight with your 4 curses, that will increase your chance of looting the Headless Horseman mount out of the loot-filled pumpkin at the end. If you die in the encounter, you don't die, you do lose your curses. So that takes away the chance. So you do have to be cognizant of the abilities it's going to give you. Basically, it's just watch your feet because you're going to get purple swirlies that pop up. You're going to get a big circular purple AoE around you that if you stay in, it's going to create a field that's going to do damage to you. You'll have your soul snatched from your body, and if it reaches its target point, you will gain a stack of the Horseman's Curse, which takes away 10% of your HP to the point where you'll end up with 0, and that's no good for anybody. I have not had that be an issue. I think the highest I've ever got on the stacks was like 3, and I was just trying to barrel to kill the boss. The boss fight is new for older players who have not experienced this. The boss fight is a new fight from the old one. There is no 3-phase intermission where his head flies off and you need to DPS it down to pull it back together. The fight will engage like normal, and then he will do things like summon AoE around him in like quadrants, and it will shoot fire. So you just have to watch. He'll do that twice. Along with the curses that you've put on yourself, you may be doing a lot of moving and having to watch where you're standing so you don't get blown up by this. The other thing is he will summon his pumpkin ads like before, but they do kind of congregate around him in the tank, so you can just kind of AoE them down. They're not the biggest threat. And the other one that I've noticed is he will put pumpkins on people's heads that create a fire pool around your feet, and that persists for about 5 seconds. So you just got to keep moving because that can stack underneath you and it will burn you out pretty quick. So just got to stay a little more aware of your surroundings if you have the curses on, but it's a pretty simple fight nonetheless. And you can loot rings from him, like always. You can loot pets like Arthas and the Sinister Squashling. You will be able to pick up wands and candies and all the stuff you need for those miscellaneous achievements if you don't have the title. So if you want more information, you can always check out Wowhead. They have an entire guide on Hallow's End, and you'll be able to follow along to get your title if you're trying to complete the long, strange journey it's been for that year-long completion achievement. If not, just have fun with the celebration and best of luck to you if you're trying to get them out. The celebration also has vendors in the Undercity and Stormwind, so if you are going around and collecting the candy buckets, you're getting tricky treats. These will be able to be turned in for exquisite costume sets for things like Xavius, Deathwing, and the Lich King. Pets such as the Cursed Berman or Naxi, which is a small ziggurat, which is really cool looking, and other miscellaneous things that you'll be able to get a hold of. So enjoy the holiday. Like I said, if you haven't gotten the Horseman mount yet, I certainly hope this year is your year. And lastly, with all of the other stuff that has been brought to the game over the past week with Hallow's End, the 20th anniversary celebration, all the content that those two things have brought, we've also been given new stuff in the cash shop. Of course, I am referring to the pet pack for the muscular dystrophy awareness. That is a good cause. I recommend that if you haven't seen the Ibelin story yet, go out of your way to check that out. If you feel like supporting the cause, please feel free to buy that pack and help raise money to help cure that muscular dystrophy. The 30th anniversary of Warcraft mount pack is just kind of boring, but I feel like it's reasonably priced for 8 mounts. Very nice. The big one, and obviously the big talking point for most folks this week, has been the Traders Guilded Brutosaur mount, that $90 Brontosaur that is in the cash shop that caused such a big uproar when it released, I believe, on Wednesday. The reasoning behind the uproar is very justifiable. You drop a $90 mount on a patch that is not being received well by the player base. The content and the class balancing is not fun for some players, and of course, the players that aren't having fun are going to be the most vocal about this kind of stuff. When you could be addressing the issues, you instead are putting out a big cash grab that just seems to be tone deaf and very ignorant toward your player base. But beyond that, it just seems to me that this is setting an ugly precedent for down the road where they go, okay, well, folks bought in, they bought the $90 mount, they'll buy the $150 mount, they'll buy the $200 mount, they'll buy the blank, however much, they'll keep putting more money behind these things. And that's bad because if you look at the Chinese player base, they were just given a Flying Swift Spectral Tiger mount for like $150, I think. And that does nothing other than fly. Like the Traders Guilded Brutosaur mount is at least an auction mount. And we all know from your years of playing, whether you played in BFA or whether you've seen it in towns or whatever, you're being able to walk up to one of those mounts and use the auction house and having to go to the auction house is nice. It's a very nice convenience. Back in BFA, it was worth 5 million gold to the people who were using the auction house to make 5 million gold. Everyone else got to reap the benefit of it standing around the mailbox. You didn't have to fly back and forth to the 2 points. This one has a mailbox on it. It's a functional upgrade of the mount that was already available in the game. Could be purchased for 1.5 million to 2 million gold, depending on how much you spent on WoW tokens. Um, at the time this thing released, like that first day and a half, like how much you were paying on WoW tokens was still below what you were like spending real gold on back then for the same mount, just the lesser version. Because this one has a mailbox on it. This one's a just standard upgrade, right? It's setting to me an ugly precedent that they're just going to start putting more of this out. They'll do it during holidays. They'll do it when they need to draw revenue up. They'll do it just to take advantage of the player base. The goodwill that I feel like the War Within has helped generate back, because the War Within seems to have been received really well so far. People have seemed to enjoy the expansion. It's held my attention personally, held it more than Dragonflight did, and I thought Dragonflight was good. Like anything building up from the Shadowlands was going in the right direction. If it held me longer than the first patch, we were doing good. So, and I'm an older player. I've been playing forever, so my attention is varied now that I'm older. But being able to keep me invested and engaged in the game, it's a sign of a good expansion for me. This mount means that you're now trying to get me to buy in for more than I'm willing to invest. And there's nothing tangible, there's nothing else with this mount. There's nothing else offered with this mount. There's no game time, there's no transmog, there's no additional pet, there's no character, there's nothing. It's just the mount. The mount is a great convenience to the people who want the convenience. I don't want the convenience. I'm not going to buy it. But I do see that in the future, they could do something like this again. And is that mount going to be a functionally better version of this mount? I don't see how it could be. I don't see what else they could do other than making a mount that summons portals. Like, are you going to replace mages? Are you going to replace Warlock's functionalities by just, hey, you have the mount that summons the portal back to Dornegal or wherever the home city is? We don't need a mage. We can run back. Hey, you've got the mount that's able to summon friends. We don't need a Warlock. Right? Are you going to trivialize some of the more niche mechanics in the game? Maybe, maybe not. But to me, the idea is that it's now on the table for the right price. I would have been happier if this had been a part of one of those 6-month or 1-year subscription buys, like Tyrell's Charger was, or the Dreadwake, or any of the other pets and mounts they've released with that type of purchase. The idea that I'm getting something for my money beyond the mount, right? You were buying the game time, the mount was the extra. Even if you flip it, hey, buy the mount and you get the game time. Well, at least I'm getting the game time. Like if I'd have gotten 6 months of game time with the Brutosaur, you would have broke even on turning in 6 WoW tokens to get the thing. So why not do that? Instead, you had to convert your 6 months of WoW token time into $15 a piece, so you got the mount. Just seems like a net negative to me, and I don't really want to put my money in a negative situation, especially nowadays. But let me know what you think about the mount, if you bought it, if you didn't buy it, if you plan on buying it over the holidays, because it will be there until January 6th, I believe. So it's going to last the entire patch. It's not a there's a fear missing out like aesthetic to it, but it's not immediate. You still have time. So with the holidays coming, I'm sure that people are going to have more expendable cash, or at least more reason to say they have expendable cash. And they'll probably purchase it for themselves, or maybe a friend or a loved one will buy it for someone else. But let me know what you think, and let me know what you think about the celebration of everything as a whole. The class changes that are upcoming, the Hallow's End changes that we got with the fights and everything, if you're an older player, the World of Warcraft celebration for the 20th anniversary so far. To me, it's been fine. Keeps me logging in every day and engaged, but the sheen is wearing off as we get into week 2. So hopefully, with that being said, that they're planning some sort of auxiliary content to keep throwing in there. Like they're gonna start rotating time walkers through and like different time walker dungeons. So hopefully they'll be adding more things for us to do during the celebration, so we're not just logging in, farming 4 world bosses, and then logging back out. I don't want that gameplay aesthetic because it's not worth my money. But thank you for watching this video. If you like it, feel free to hit subscribe. Let me know what you think of the content. If you'd like me to cover anything else or just a different way of approaching things, I'd be most appreciative for the feedback. Thank you for watching, and have a good rest of your day.